Hey, hey, F50 Woman. Thank you for joining us. I am so excited because we are here with Reverend Dr. Marcia Ledford today. She is a civil rights attorney and so much more. And I'm just going to jump right in and just say, welcome. Oh, I'm
Marcia.
sorry. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. It's a real pleasure.
So we're just going to jump right in. I'd love
Okay.
to hear about who you were as a young woman. It could be as a little girl, whatever significant, but who were you? What did you like? What did you want to be? What did you dream about when you were a young girl?
Well, I would say that I was probably, and my parents would agree, a little on the ornery side, confident and felt strongly about my own opinions and felt strongly about things one way or the other.
Mhm.
I sensed a call to ordained ministry as a teenager, but I was not seeing a lot of women at the pulpit and the altar. And then I came out in my late teens. I had kind of a tumultuous coming out and sort of had a falling out with God. It was a very difficult time until I met Linda, who is now my wife, and we
Mhm.
just celebrated 39 years. She works for social justice and has devoted her working life to that. We have this important foundation between the two of us to work for greater justice and equality in American society. I decided to go into law and felt I could help people that way. The law is a helping profession. I became a civil rights attorney, and that was very important work. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but as life marched on, I realized that this call I sensed from the Holy Spirit was not giving up just because I was saying no. So I started seminary in my late 40s. Then I was ordained and worked in the Latino population in Southwest Detroit. I was appalled at what our government is doing to families, to little children, many of whom are
Mhm.
American citizens, and their families are being torn apart by our archaic immigration system.
Okay.
I decided to go back to school, to seminary, and earned a Doctor of Ministry in political theology. It's a place where my love of the gospel and my love of the Constitution can work together. That's
Right.
my full time ministry now. I started a mission called Political Theology Matters.
Wow. Because, like you're saying, those two words, political theology and social justice, even those four words, they seem all to contradict in our mind, at least in my mind. I speak for myself, in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, of what those words mean and
Mm-hmm.
what they stand for. So, how do you combine them all? Tell me about your work and how does it work? I'm having a as I was reading, I had a hard time accepting them all together.
Well, one of the things that is ingrained in us as school age kids is this concept of the separation of church and state. A lot of people think this phrase is actually in the Constitution.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a phrase that was written by Thomas Jefferson to a group of Anabaptists in 1803. The founders of our Constitution wanted to be the architects of something where there was not a state religion. For the folks who came over from England seeking religious freedom,
Mm-hmm.
people were tired of the government telling them whether to be Protestant or Catholic, or getting up into their very personal, the window into their soul, as Elizabeth I used to describe it.
Mm.
And they wanted to create something where the state would stay out of your worship related and exercise of religion related activities. So people think that they can't do anything with respect to faith and speaking it out loud. We have to remember that the First Amendment prohibits the conduct of Congress. It doesn't prohibit our conduct. There are some rules and limits that affect our speech, but for the most part, the limitations we understand about faith and the state relate to what Congress can't do, which is to establish an official or superior religion. That doesn't affect us as individual citizens. even churches which do have some speech limitations, like endorsing a candidate or influencing how a referendum is voted on.
Mm.
Even 501c3 companies can do a lot to work for whatever cause is important to them.
Yeah.
So we are allowed to speak. Look at Dr. Martin Luther King. His whole civil rights movement, Christianity and the gospel and inclusion and compassion were shot through the whole movement. Same thing with Cesar Chavez. He was a devout Catholic. They did pilgrimages to draw attention to the plight of farm workers and the terrible conditions under which they worked, along with Dolores Huerta. We have always had movements that involved reinterpreting the Bible, the gospel. Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote what is called the Women's Bible during women's suffrage. We can use our faith-based beliefs as a basis for advocating for justice. Nothing precludes us from doing that because we're not trying to establish a faith. We're trying to speak what our faith is.
Fairness, equity, love, justice.
Social justice, it's about creating a situation where everyone has a fair playing field in society. We don't have that in the United States, and we never had that. So that's what it's really about.
And when it's everyone, it's everyone. It's not, you had it, and now we want to take it from you and give it to somebody else. That's not the idea.
There's a lot of that kind of jockeying for position within the white community. We certainly saw that on January 6th.
Right. So would you, I know you sort of smoothly swept through the two pivot points I heard about in your life. Do you want to expand on them? Tell some stories just to learn the holes you went in and how you got out, what you learned from it, whether it's when you came out or when you went back to become a reverend. Share some of those with us so we can learn.
I've really been very lucky in the career opportunities I've had.
Okay.
Henry Nouwen, who was a wonderful mystic, he was a Catholic priest, and he wrote a book called The Wounded Healer. In this book, he speaks about how we take our woundedness and use it for the good. He maintains that the hurts we incur, which are inevitable in life, teach us and empower us to help others who are in similar circumstances, or maybe not even similar circumstances, but you can take the life lessons that are typically universally applicable.
Yeah.
And you can apply them to just about anything you want to. And so I learned, even though I'm white, and white privilege certainly has been a part of my existence. My dad had a very good job at General Motors. I had the opportunity to become well educated. I had a lot of things made possible for me because I'm white. But I also experienced on a different axis of privilege or disprivilege, I experienced what it's like to be a lesbian in this society.
Yeah.
And to not be able to marry until the 32nd year of our relationship, even though we pay taxes and are good citizens and make contributions to the common good and all of those things. We still were treated like second-class citizens.
Wow. Okay.
And so I can take that learning, that hurt, the struggle that it took for us to be tough. Marriage is hard enough. And then when you have those kinds of challenges where nobody recognizes you and nobody wants to recognize you, and in fact, people disparage you and call you terrible names and think you are far inferior to them, that teaches you a lot about life. It has made it possible for me to understand what it might be like, help me to better understand, but not fully. Let me be clear about that. What it would be like, for example, to be a person of color in this country.
Right.
What it would be like to be an immigrant who not only is often a person of color, but also lacks the citizen documents such that they're always looking over their shoulders. They always have to hide a little bit. They call that living in las sombras, living in the shadows. that whole experience really taught me that what I need to do for the rest of my working life is to advocate, to help equip the faithful to be more effective public advocates for social justice.
Yeah.
The meaning of political theology is speaking your faith-based tradition, belief, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
in the public square for greater social justice,
Okay.
and hopefully to as broad an audience as possible.
Yeah.
So all of these experiences that I've had have taught me this. I went to a protest one time, and a man was facing deportation who had three little daughters. They were like
Yeah.
9, 7, and 5.
Right.
Just darling children. The mother is out of the picture, and he was brought here himself as a child
Wow. Right.
and grew up here, and this is his home.
Yeah.
He works hard and has a good job and takes beautiful care of his family, and he got deported
Oh my goodness. To a place he didn't
to a
know because he
place that
didn't
was
grow up
completely strange to him.
completely
Correct.
foreign.
Correct. And leaving these little children, United States citizens, to be in the hands of others, away from their beloved father.
Yeah.
This made me very angry. This catalyzed that wounded healer in me to say, no, I am not going to suborn this. I am going to challenge my government and help others challenge our government, because we can do a lot better than this. And as you know, this happened before all the stuff at the border and caging children and all this terrible stuff that's been going on.
Right.
The work has become even more urgent, especially with the previous administration. And I'll tell you one story. I was in seminary and visited a drop-in center for LGBT youth in Detroit.
Mm.
I was going up this steep staircase, and at the top is a whiteboard, and they often just wrote all kinds of stuff
Okay.
up there. And somebody wrote a question: how are you feeling today? There was only one word centered both ways in big capital letters,
Mm-hmm.
and the word was abomination.
Wow.
And I swore to myself. And as I'm going up the stairs, I thought, it's just the same crap, a different decade. This is what I was dealing with 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is no good.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that I work on. We've got 4 areas that we address in terms of righting social injustice. One is obviously immigration reform. One is LGBTQ inclusion. Another one is racial reconciliation and dealing with police brutality. And the last one is the prevention or eradication of human trafficking.
Wow. That's a lot.
So that woundedness in me has been brought out in these 4 areas of ministry. Right now, I've been working primarily on immigration reform and racial reconciliation, but also I will be having a book coming out on LGBT issues and the clever passages of the Bible that have been used to humiliate gay and lesbian people.
I was going to ask you that question, and I was not sure I should, but you opened the door. So I'm wondering how that was for you going through seminary. From my perspective, I figured they would be like, no, you're not coming to do this work.
Okay. Well, it's like anything else. You kind of have to pick and choose. I made sure that the diocese that I was seeking ordination in would openly
Gotcha.
LGBT people, which that was a non-issue.
Yeah.
And that is pretty much the case in the Episcopal Church. We went through a split. Some people may or may not know this, but we did go through a pretty big split in 2003 after the consecration of Gene Robinson as Bishop of New Hampshire, who's an openly gay man and had been a priest for 20 some odd years. The church split. The Episcopal Church that has remained is overwhelmingly positive. I started at a seminary in Detroit and commuted there for 2 years. I had a great experience in many ways. The majority population is African American. But there were also a lot of older white women who didn't have the opportunity to seek ordination when they were young. And so now we're getting a little older and a little feistier, and now we're going to seminary.
That's right.
Yeah. So I went there for a couple of years, but there were issues about how the school was dealing with inclusion
Okay.
for the LGBT community.
Okay.
It has a lot of conservative church donors who were not really on board. And while the faculty and administration was fine with me, I did have a couple of classmates who had issues. With one of them, I had a very transformative experience. I also needed to do Anglican studies as part of my Master of Divinity, which we all have to do for the denomination that we're going to be ordained in. And we have to study our history and policy and all of those things.
Yeah.
It was getting to be time for me to do the Anglican part of this. So I did transfer and I went to the Church Divinity School of the Pacific, which is an Episcopal seminary. And of course, it was a complete non-issue there. Basically, half of us, I think, were lesbian or gay. It was a very nourishing, wonderful experience. It was one of the best things that I've ever done for myself in terms of that, despite the separation from Linda for 2 semesters.
Right.
It was a marvelous experience. And so I sort of experienced both sides of it, which I think was good for me to get a better understanding of where people are at and why their discomfort level is so high. But then to go somewhere where they're like, oh, yeah, have a seat.
Right. Let's learn. So, were you ever uncomfortable yourself with it? Was there ever a point where you...
Oh, yeah. Leviticus, that whole abomination thing, like the story I just mentioned, I very much was worried about that. Of course, the church at the time, I was raised in a Protestant tradition, and nobody ever talked about it in the mid and late 70s going into the 80s. Nobody talked about sexuality at all.
Right.
And so I just got the impression that, silence equals, if you blow your own cover, it's not going to be good. I had a very serious sort of falling out with God over this. And, why did you do this to me? I know that I can't change and I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like I've got to choose between you and who I am, who you made me to be. But then I met Linda and she was very comfortable. She was raised Roman Catholic. She just was very comfortable with herself, and that helped me a lot.
Okay. Is she in the ministry as well? Is she a minister or
no?
Or she's just a faith? She just has faith.
She has a secular job. She works for a government and she investigates issues of discrimination.
So you both have a similar passion.
We have a very important foundation that we share.
Now, did you have anyone to help you through that process? Did you have someone who was going through the same thing? Did you meet someone? Even after you came out and you started? Yeah.
Our dear friends David and Doug, we met them at the Episcopal Cathedral in Detroit, and very, very close friends. And we're now, like brothers and sisters. We helped each other. Yeah. And Doug had dealt with being part of Homosexuals Anonymous and that whole conversion therapy stuff. He'd really been to hell and back with that. And so we were all working through it in our own ways. But the 4 of us, we even wrote our life covenant ceremonies together. Theirs was the first weekend of October and ours was 2 weeks later. We wrote our liturgy and service together, and they were a little bit different. Theirs was in Ann Arbor and very accepting. They were kissing out in the front yard of the church and people driving down the street and honking their horns. And ours was sort of the opposite. The ceremony got leaked and it was in the newspaper. We had to hire bodyguards and we had protesters. It was really something. Yeah.
I'm sitting here trying to imagine being in your shoes at that moment.
Right.
Because I know I'm a Black woman, so sometimes walking in certain areas make me afraid, far less having people protesting me and writing me up in the paper. So wow. So kind of build some strength inside you, I imagine. Some inner strength, fearlessness.
We did. We had to decide who we were going to be and then be it.
Yes.
And we all face that at critical points in our lives.
But you know what? Marcia, I feel like even at my age, the life that I lived, the skin that I lived in, I'm not sure that I have decided that who I'm going to be
Mm.
against that fear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how you got there. Was it just natural? Did you decide? Was it just so bad that you're like, look, what's the worst you can do to me? My God's got me and I have a purpose. Is it your purpose that drives you? Was it just that you built that strength over time after time after time after time of people coming at you? Because
I
there's some
think it's
situations that I'm just still afraid of. And I'm like, oh, please, Lord, don't put that in my way.
I think it's a combination of things. I think we all grow and get stronger over time with our life experiences.
Yeah.
Of course, it happens at unique paces, because
Right.
we're all very unique and each of us has a very unique lens on the world.
Yeah.
The skin we're born in, as you said, our gender, whether our parents were around, whether we were exposed to a lot of bad stuff growing up,
Right.
or if we had a really good experience. There's all kinds of things that test us, if you will. And so I think I mentioned to you that I was ornery and rather ornery, kind of disobedient, hard-headed little monkey, but also had hurts that set me back and whatnot. So I think my faith has just always been sort of the bedrock of who I am. And I just always had the sense that God was around and that God was calling me. Even though I was practicing law, I wasn't doing ordained ministry at that time. I made sure to do work that helped people.
Okay.
I made sure I was a blessing to people and not a curse to them.
Yeah.
And I have incredible friends. I have Linda, who is a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
And I have amazing friends.
Yeah.
My family is terrific. My dad took a long time to come around. My mom was always right there. My brother was always right there.
Okay.
Linda's brothers were always right there. Her parents were so supportive.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is luck. Some of it's blessing. Some of it's strength. Some of it's whatever. It just
character, maybe even
and I would say to you, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
Plan it out, strategize as best you can, and pray on it and ask other people to pray on it.
Yeah.
Should I do X and such and so and so? And ask people that you trust to pray on that for a month and see what happens. That's part of discernment. That's about discerning the spirit, trying to figure out, all right, what are you telling me to do? If you would just tell me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And there are lots of good ways to do that, to test out this sense that you have. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Test out your, that you think you're being called to do something.
Right.
Engage in group discernment. Get others in the prayer chain to make a call.
I like that. Yeah. Can you call the Holy Spirit for me? Because I need some extra confirmation here.
Absolutely.
So what is the one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
My younger self? I don't have a dress rehearsal.
That's what you would tell them?
I would say, Marcia, you do not have a dress rehearsal in this life. So get to it.
Nice. And I'm just curious, what do you think she would have said to you?
She would have probably said, oh, okay.
You wouldn't have fought with that concept or said,
I don't think
what
so.
are you talking about? So. Okay. Nice. I was
always an old kid. I was 11 going on 40. My parents had a bad divorce and things were pretty rocky for me until I pretty much got out of college. Okay. I think that if I had not had that experience and somebody had said to me, you don't get a dress rehearsal, I would have found my path in life faster.
Okay.
But like anything else, that suffering and struggle and trying to help my mother were very important life lessons too.
Yeah. They helped you to build a muscle and solidify your purpose, maybe.
Yep. Your spiritual muscle.
Yeah. That's incredible. You go through those things and you're like, no, why? But on the other side of it, some powerful things could happen if you learn from it.
Absolutely.
So what is next for you? I know you talked about writing a book. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited about reading that book to get a
Well,
different
thank
perspective
you.
on things.
I'm working on two. I'm
Okay.
working on the clobber passages from the Bible. There are 7,
Okay.
traditionally really 6, because one of them is so ridiculous it shouldn't be used at all. I'm also writing a book on how to be a faith-based advocate.
I am looking forward to that one too. Because, like you said, in my mind, my faith and my advocacy, they're sort of separate. When you combine them, will people listen? And
Right.
maybe they'll just write you off as, you're just super religious. It'd be
Okay.
great to learn from.
I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on it when
Hmm.
it gets out. I'll be sure and let you know when they drop.
Yes, please.
I often ask people, when you sit in the pew in your house of worship, where is the voting part of you?
Where is the voting part of you?
And when you're in a voting booth, where's the worshiping side of you? Where's the faith side of you? They're always together. You cannot separate them any more than Solomon could have cut the baby in half. It's all part of who we are. Therefore, we need to be thinking theologically about what's going on in our world. And we do need to be thinking politically about what's going on in our faith and how that is affecting our society.
Yeah.
Jesus did it all the time.
Yes.
Jesus was a political theologian.
Question. Yes. I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Yes. That's powerful because I don't think we think that way. And like you were saying, the separation of church and state. And when I go do that, I'm this person. And when I go here, I'm this person. But
Right.
when you have faith, it's supposed to be all encompassing
Yes.
everywhere you go.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to be thinking about that a lot. So, what is one book that you would advise every woman to read?
Every woman to read.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that book, oh gosh, I wrote it down and I can't even read it. The Hurt Healer, the Wounded Healer.
The Wounded Healer.
So I have that one written down.
I think that's a good book for anybody to read. I think we as women are naturally healers or expected to be healers. So I think that could be a very good choice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something. Do you want something that would be theological, or?
It could be anything.
It could be anything.
Yeah. There are a lot of souls to feed. So whatever food you can give them.
Can we come back to that?
We sure can. We sure can.
Let me mull that over a minute.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I have a question that I jumped over that I can't wait for you to answer. And that question is, and I'm not sure I sent it to you. I'm pretty sure I did. What do you think that evil spreads faster than love? If you do, why? Or do you not even think that's true?
First of all, I think love is more powerful than evil. Using your language, I would say that love travels farther than evil does. Okay. Evil can do overwhelming damage, particularly in a short period of time. Okay. But typically, evil is overtaken by love. That's a very interesting and rather tricky question. Yeah.
Yes.
But I do believe that I just wrote a blog about 9/11. Yeah. And I'm very conflicted about it. I still am. I really felt strongly that we needed to respond in some way to this vicious attack. Yeah. But then we've been watching the withdrawal of our troops from Afghanistan when we went in with the specific goal of getting Al Qaeda, which we did 10 years ago. And we've still been there, risking lots of lives with our civilian and military personnel, and spending lots of money not really getting us anywhere, trying to democratize a company that has never wanted to be a democracy. Yeah, country. Yeah, you said company. Country. To be a theocratic country, that's what they are. They don't want to be a democratic country. Right. And so what was your question? Does evil spread faster than love? Okay. So I think that's an example of making sure that we know what is being put forth as an action of love or an action of evil?
Right.
Was it just about us getting our honor back, or did we have good motives for doing what we did? I don't think we did a very good assessment of that.
Okay.
What happened was evil. What happened in Manhattan and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon was evil.
Yeah.
I'm sure we did some evil on the other side.
Mhm.
People don't like that. It makes them angry. But in order for us to assess true love and to assess true evil, we have to ask these questions. Yeah.
I like how you said evil does more damage. It's almost like it's bigger, quicker bursts.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
but you see something like Ida happen, and then you see how people respond.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying a natural disaster is evil, but I am saying that bad things can happen and love and care can overtake it.
Yeah. That's why I asked that question, because I struggle with that a little bit, because it just
Mhm.
feels like somebody comes out with something negative or purposefully hurtful, and
Mhm.
people just follow.
Yeah.
When you try to do good, there are people
Mhm.
that follow too. Maybe my vision is more on the other thing.
I
I'm not
I
sure.
really feel that our social ability to think critically about a situation
Mhm.
has weakened a great deal. It concerns me a lot that people don't think about stuff for themselves and collect lots of information from reputable sources to draw a conclusion about something. It's
Right.
very troublesome to me.
Important stuff. Really big.
Import or
Yeah.
taking a flight, believing stuff that's just fantastical, like hook, line, and sinker.
Just running with
This
it.
is this is
Yeah.
a concern.
I'm with you on
Big
that.
one.
I'm
Yeah.
with you for sure. So tell us, what is one thing that you have to do every day?
One thing that I have to do every day.
One thing you can't miss it. You have to do this thing every day.
I have to pray or meditate.
Now, when you pray, tell us about prayer. When you pray or when you teach others to pray, is it a long-winded, loud, or is it a quiet, or is there a combination? Do
Well,
you have to be on your knees? Can you stand up? Can you walk?
oh,
Yeah.
I can be doing anything and pray.
Okay.
That's never been an issue, but I am
Okay.
an Episcopalian and we
Yeah.
are rather formal,
Okay.
particularly in our worship. And we have a prayer book and we have written prayers,
Okay.
and they're typically not very long.
Mm.
I think they're very effective and they're typically very poetically written. We
Mhm.
do narrative prayer where we, pray unscripted.
Yeah.
But for me personally, the best kind of prayer is what is called centering prayer,
Mhm.
where you sit in a quiet place with God for a period of time, like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
with a timer, with a bell or a gong or something. And you develop a recentering word.
Okay.
For me, it's typically peace or pacem, which is Latin for peace. And I like it because it has two
2
syllables,
syllables, right?
right? And so you're going to have monkey mind when you get quiet and try and just sit. Our
Yeah.
minds are wired to be hopping around doing stuff. They
Yeah.
call it a monkey mind.
Mhm.
And so when your monkey mind starts kicking in, you say your word,
Okay.
pacem, and you just return back to clearing your mind.
Okay.
And you say the word very gently. I heard a teacher once say that it's like taking a feather and placing it on a piece of cotton and
Okay.
just setting the word down.
Nice.
Or imagine that you're in a stream and you're floating downstream under the surface of the water.
Mhm.
And if you have to say your safe word, it's like you have to come up for a quick little breath and then you say it and go back down and
Nice.
stay in that silence, in that moving stillness.
Mhm.
I have found this to be a transformative practice and I highly recommend it.
I like that visual you gave us with,
The feather,
yeah.
laying a feather on a piece of cotton and just very gently setting it there
Yeah.
and just very quiet. People don't think of me normally as quiet because I'm an
Okay.
extrovert, but
Okay.
it has been a hugely transformative thing to start doing meditation like that.
Do you feel like your prayer life or your meditation over the years have gotten more powerful?
No question about it, because of the contemplation.
I ask that because some who aren't in the habit of praying or meditating, they may feel like monkey mind is just making me crazy and this is just not working.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep practicing and praying and thinking,
I have found that to be true. And I think a lot of people who do it would say the same thing. Thomas Merton was a great Trappist mystic.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said to him, Father, I try to pray and my mind wanders 486 times. And he responded and said, how wonderful for you to return to God 486 times.
Oh, yes. Yes. Flip that right over.
So let's just turn it right back around and think about the beauty of working to be able to return when you're struggling to hold your concentration.
I just got butterflies. That's wonderful.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
He believed that we all are born with a divine spark in us. It's almost like an outlet where you plug into God. And I agree with him. Anytime we do things like this, even though they may not be successful, and we open ourselves up to that spark, we're going to enjoy spiritual and emotional growth.
Nice. There's just so much wisdom. I'm going to have to listen to this again because that is really great.
Oh, you're too kind.
When you tap into the spark. Because, especially over the last year and a half, some churches closed down. Doing church on Zoom was just like, oh my goodness. After a while, I don't know what it is being in person and having, maybe it's the energy with the group and the songs. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But you start to feel like the spark is getting a little dull. And maybe I'll just skip today.
Oh, it's easy to do that.
Yeah. Wow. So I have to think about that one as well. So back to the book. Do you have a book? Good.
I've been thinking about it since you were really enjoying our conversation about centering prayer. One of the books I read to get started in it was written by an Episcopal priest. Her name is Cynthia Bourgeau.
Okay.
And I'll put it in my show notes. And it's about centering prayer.
Okay.
I think it's something every woman would benefit from because we have so many demands on our lives, particularly if we have children in the home. There's a lot of things that pull away from us. This is a great book written by a woman about learning how to do something special for yourself.
Okay.
Which is, of course, the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
So that's what I recommend. I'll put the information in the show notes.
Centering prayer. A lot of us who had kids could probably have used that when they were little. I'm telling you. Center me because I'm going nuts, talking baby language all day. Then it's dinner, then it's cleaning, then it's everything else.
There's an old expression that if you think you don't have time to sit and meditate for 20 minutes, then you really do need to sit for an hour.
Ain't that the truth? 100%. Or else you're going to be in trouble in a few years. I'm going to be kicking the dog. For no reason. Thank you so much. My last question is, how can listeners get in touch with you after this podcast?
PoliticalTheologyMatters.com is my website. PoliticalTheologyMatters.com. You can email me at the same place, Marcia@PoliticalTheologyMatters.com.
Nice.
You can find me on Facebook and at PoliticalTheologyMatters.com, on Twitter at Doc Ledford, and on Instagram at Doc Ledford, and LinkedIn at Marcia Ledford. I've got a couple of books coming out in the next 8 months. Stay tuned, and I'll keep your wonderful host informed.
Yes, we're looking forward to those. And I'm so thankful to talk to you. Please don't be surprised when you get an email from me saying, Marcia, I can't do it.
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to stay in touch.
Yes, you're steeped in it. And sometimes, like you said, we need that mastermind where
we all
you start
need
to tip.
Cohort.
Yes. And somebody can push you back and say, yeah, you can do it, girl.
Yeah.
Come on, take the 20 minutes.
It, girl.
Yeah. If you can't take 20 minutes, take the hour. Come on.
Right.
But thank you so much for being with us.
All right. Thank you, and blessings.